Tell us about all of your current duties, if you would.
Certainly. So I work as a consultant for NAC Forensics, but I'm also a child abuse pediatrician at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where I also serve as the fellowship director for the program that teaches general pediatricians about child abuse pediatrics and to prepare for board certification in the same subspecialty.
How much of the work that you do in your group is for the prosecution of cases like this?
The vast majority of my role in the hospital setting is for the prosecution.
When were you licensed to practice medicine?
I'm licensed in the state of Georgia and the state of Wyoming.
And when did you receive that licensure?
For the state of Georgia, I believe it was 2018, and for the state of Wyoming, it was 2017.
Tell the jury a little bit about your academic background and the training you received.
Yeah, so I completed a bachelor's in cell molecular and biology in the State University of New York at New Paltz, where I also continue in my graduate studies there in cell biology with a focus on immunology. Then I went to osteopathic school in New York Institute of Technology, and then I completed my pediatric residency at University of Florida, and I continue there to complete a 3-year fellowship in child abuse pediatrics.
What's the primary area of your practice? What has that been during the course of your career?
So initially, I combined pediatric hospitalist with child abuse pediatrics. And then when I was hired at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, they needed a full-time child abuse pediatrician because of the fellowship program. So then I accepted the role as fellowship director and full-time child abuse pediatrician, at which time I then stopped doing pediatric hospitalist work.
How many years have you functioned as a pediatric abuse doctor?
For now, about 11 years.
Have you testified as an expert in the field of child abuse before today?
Yes, sir.
How many times have you testified?
Now over 100 times, I would say.
All different courts?
Yes, in different states.
And you're paid for your services, is that right?
That is correct.
Over the years, have you developed an expertise in injury analysis and interpretation?
Yes, I have through the fellowship program and obviously through the general pediatrics training, and then obviously following the program completion.
Can you estimate for the jury the number of cases of this kind that you've consulted on during your career?
Hundreds in different capacities, ranging from at the bedside management all the way to video reviews and medical record reviews. So potentially over 1,000, well over 1,000. It's hard to tell at this point.
Are you a board certified physician?
Yes, I am.
What subspecialties are you board certified?
So I am board certified in general pediatrics and I'm board certified in child abuse pediatrics.
Tell the jury a little bit about the requirements that you had to meet before you could be board certified in those areas.
So for completing a general pediatrics residency, the most objective way in which I present it is you have to complete approximately 20,000 hours of just general pediatric work. At our particular program, we did a great deal of NICU care. So I delved heavily in infant management, particularly in critical care. And then in the child abuse realm, child abuse pediatrics, the 3-year fellowship really deals with a comprehensive understanding of all forms of child maltreatment. So it's not just a physical abuse aspect, but also neglect in its different forms of neglect, medical child abuse, sexual abuse, psychological maltreatment, and the different forms of physical abuse. part of that training also encompasses doing a great deal of, at least in my program, a great deal of pathology. So we do or participate heavily in autopsies, so that way we can understand the different realms of trauma, both externally and also internal trauma.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to offer Dr. Pena as an expert in the field of child abuse, pediatrics.
Do you have any questions? All right, this witness will be qualified as an expert in the field of child abuse.
Dr. Pena, did you receive certain materials in connection with this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
And explain to the jury what were those materials that you received?
I received the medical records for Olivia that dealt into evaluations that were completed by her pediatrician or primary care provider, medical records that dealt with evaluations in the emergency department, and also records about pre-existing medical history that was not associated with the incident on her body, and images that presented the injuries that were under question, both from the radiological standpoint and pictures of her body.
And was all of that information things that the defense received from the state in the course of this case?
That is my understanding, yes.
Did you prepare a formal written report in this case?
Yes, I prepared an opinion that I transmitted to NAG Forensics.
Okay. And you've used that phrase a few times, NAG Forensics. Tell the jury, what is NAG Forensics?
So it's a consulting agency that essentially secures my services for gathering second opinions on cases of child maltreatment.
And is NAG or NAAG an acronym of some sort?
Yes, it is.
And what is that acronym?
Nucleic Autopsy, National Autopsy Assay Group.
Dr. Pena, what is your understanding of the alleged injuries in this case?
My understanding is that there are two sets of injuries that were under evaluation at the time that Olivia was under consideration that she had experienced child maltreatment. There were bruises, and there was a questionable finding of her skull.
And I assume in doing your analysis, you saw certain video that was captured on January the 9th, 2023 at the Tylertown Learning Center in Clarksville, Tennessee. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And you've had an opportunity to carefully review that video. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Based on all of the discovery materials that you've received, both written and electronic, were you able to form an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether the imaging studies done in this case reflect a skull fracture?
Yes, I was able to have an opinion on this matter.
If you would, please tell the jury in some detail what your opinion is.
So when I review the images of the CAT scan, I compared it with what I typically see in my everyday. So when I paid specific attention to the finding on the skull, and I usually do an evaluation of the image before I read what the radiologist states, so that way it's really an unbiased opinion about it. So when I looked at the images, I quickly thought of it as I can see why this would be considered an injury, but this aligns more with with a non-injury essentially, or a Wormian bone, at least based on my experience. And when I went into the read by the radiologist, I was able to confirm that it was appreciated as a lucency. So it confirmed my impression, my initial impression, which was this does not look like your, prototypical fracture. So that was the first part. Then the second piece, I was looking for any signs of surrounding trauma, essentially soft tissue trauma to the scalp, which thankfully the radiologist commented that there was no injury to the soft tissue area. And then immediately I looked below the bone to find out if there was any kind of injury involving the brain or the layers that cover the brain, and there was no injury there. So my initial read and what I read from the radiologist's report was an agreement.
Now, you've seen the video in this case, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And seeing the video and the interaction between Sarah Fuson and Olivia Hyde on January the 9th, 2023, did you think that the action of Sarah Fuson was capable of causing a skull fracture?
I did not.
And what do you base that on?
So I based that on several things. So intrinsically or specifically focused to Olivia and what I saw in the video, the first part I see is that the areas of her head that are coming into contact with the cot is really more the side of her head or the front of her face or her face. So when I see the impact on both sides, if there was an injury that would have resulted from that, I would anticipate that it would be on the parietal skull, not at the top of the head. So that was a major one. And the reason for that is when we look at injury assessments, and one of the things that we deal in our service is that we are the only service in the state of Georgia that really assesses cases for child maltreatment. So everything from the state really comes to us, irrespective of where it might be on the state. So we look at these images quite frequently. And what I was able to notice or decipher quickly is that the energy that went into what I saw in the video would not rise to what I encounter and what causes a fracture. That's one. And two, the mechanics of it in terms of what I'm seeing, the surface where her head is coming into impact with does not really, is not a hard surface. So I wouldn't anticipate that she would generate a fracture from that kind of contact. So there was lack of energy and the mechanics of it do not align with the anatomical place where this fracture is located or this suspected fracture is located.
You were able to hear the testimony this morning of the state's expert, is that right?
Yes, I was.
In her report, she suggests a possible concussion. Based on your review of everything in this case, did you see any indication of a concussion?
I did not, no.
And explain again in some detail to the jury why you don't think there was a concussion in this case.
So the first part is being able to assess a concussion in an infant is extremely challenging. Even when you have a good history and even when you have an exam that you're able to perform in person. So I can't imagine how from a video we would be able to have high suspicion or high confirmation or a way to confirm that. So that was the first part that we're really dealing with a video. The second part is that I was able to observe Olivia after her nap. And what I noticed based on her walking around and how she's interacting with the environment, that would be highly unusual that she would have just sustained a concussion half an hour, less than an hour ago, and then she would be able to walk around the room the way in which she was doing it. She was playing with the kitchen. I didn't see any toddling walking that would tell me that her walk was different because of a brain issue. This is something that we observe. So there's a clear difference between walking because you have a brain injury and falling versus toddling and falling from your inability to actually walk in an upright position. So I didn't see any neurological findings or suggestions that would take me in the direction of a concussion. Then when you look at the historical aspects that were covered at different stages, and no, there's no history of repeated vomiting, of persistent fussiness that would tell us that she's in pain or holding her head frequently, which would be kind of like the only thing that would red flag us in that direction as pediatricians. So it would be difficult for me to, even though I would think about it, because again, we're looking at injuries in a child that can't tell us how they're feeling based on what I saw in the video and the totality of the medical record review, I wouldn't have a high index of suspicion for a concussion.
And you've obviously reviewed carefully the CT scan that was done at Vanderbilt Hospital on January the 19th of 2023. Is that right?
Yes, I did review those images.
And what were your impressions of what you were seeing on that CT scan of Olivia Hyde?
So my impression was that that area that was found there warranted some, obviously some closer observation. But when you actually look at all the different areas of the skull and the three-dimensional views and the overlying tissue, the soft tissue right on top of the bone, and obviously the brain under, there's no evidence that there's a true injury there, not only to me, but to the radiologist as well. So in our service, we don't typically align or we don't consider suspicious fractures to be real fractures. So we don't make a determination on that because if you don't have a way to confirm that, it would be difficult to assign a diagnosis of maltreatment to something that you don't know whether it's truly there or not.
As a policy reason, why don't you like to ascribe any maltreatment to a suspicious, so-called suspicious for fracture?
I mean, because we're dealing with way beyond pathology. At that point, we're dealing with other dynamics in terms of family dynamics, parenting dynamics, or other caregiver dynamics. So when you're dealing with maltreatment, you have to have a lot more precision in what you consider an injury. Not to mention, we know that there's a lot of variants out there that are normal variants, and therefore it warrants another pause in terms of how you're going to assess that injury. And if you don't have everything aligned in a way that would confirm that this is an injury, it would not be very objective to assign a diagnosis of maltreatment to something that, again, you cannot really confirm whether there is true or not.
The state's expert claims to see a fracture. What do you think you see in your expert opinion when you evaluate the CT scan?
I would use the same nomenclature as the radiologist, a lucency there. There's a difference in how the bone appears, but it does not align with what I would consider to be a true fracture. If there was a history of a fall that would align with that region in the, let's say a month, 2 months ago, then I would start considering that this actually would align with that because there's some description given by the radiologist that they say is subacute or a chronic injury. So that actually it would be more consistent, but not from a 10, from an injury that was sustained 10 days ago. That would not be my impression on that.
You were able to hear the testimony of the state's expert this morning, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And there was some discussion about a Wormian bone. Do you remember hearing that testimony?
I did.
And again, for me and the jury, what is a Wormian bone?
So a Wormian bone is essentially a piece of bone within the suture. And we see it in a series of areas of the skull, but mostly we encounter in the occipital areas and the parietal skull areas.
What does the role of a Wormian bone have in your analysis, in your team's analysis of what we're all seeing on the CT scan?
We pay a lot of attention to Wormian bones because they can at times look very much like fractures. So you can imagine if the question at hand is this a fracture or not, then we have to look at it in different ways. So we use the assistance of our radiology team to guide us through that. And sometimes we have even had to repeat images to find out, in 2 weeks or not, if we see any changes that would bring a bit more clarity to what may be a Wormian bone versus a fracture. But this one would not be categorized as that based on how we assess these cases in our service.
And you work for a company known as NAAG, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And give the jury some idea of the resources that you all have to do your evaluations and analyses in cases like this.
So actually, there's a vast amount of resources within the NAAG group, but Most of my participation in these cases is to provide Dr. Mashus with a second opinion on these cases. So I don't have access to that information. I stay within the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta environment consistently. So he would be a better person to highlight those resources.
And who else on the NAAG team worked on this case with you?
Dr. Henkes did.
Okay, and Dr. Matches, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Dr. Pena, you have shared with me a copy of your CV, your curriculum vitae, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And I know we're doing this remotely. And where are you today, by the way, so we all know?
I'm currently in Atlanta.
Okay. Is the curriculum vitae that you and your staff emailed to me, are you able to identify that as your CV?
Yes,
Okay. And you know it is because you sent it to me, is that right?
that is correct.
Your Honor, we would offer his curriculum vitae as the next numbered exhibit.
Number 9. Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9. Oh. Okay. Do you have a copy of your CV in front of you?
I can pull one up. It'll take me a few seconds, but I could.
And I'm not going to go into it in any great detail, but just hit some high points. Thank you. Dr. Pena, I've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 9 to this trial. And tell me if you've pulled up your CV.
Still working on it. Let me see if I can grab it from here instead.
Do you have it?
I do, sir. Yes,
And it reflects your medical licensure, is that right?
that's correct.
What states are you licensed to practice medicine?
So, as I mentioned earlier, Georgia and Wyoming. Florida, I did not renew this year.
Your CV also has a section on clinical and leadership positions, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And currently you are the Child Abuse Pediatrics Fellowship Director at Emory University in Atlanta, is that right?
That is correct.
Your CV also contains a section about publications, honors, awards, acknowledgements, is that right?
That is correct.
And that goes from 2020 back to 2012, is that correct?
That is correct.
You also list all of the various presentations that you've made, is that correct?
That is correct.
As well as all the trainings that you've conducted, is that also correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And you also list your teaching and mentorship experience, is that right?
Yes, sir.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Do you have an opinion, doctor, as to, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, as to whether Olivia Hyde sustained a skull fracture?
I do have an opinion on that.
And tell us that opinion.
My opinion is that we don't have enough information to confirm that she had a fracture of her skull.
And similarly, within a degree of reasonable medical certainty, have you formed an opinion as to whether this child sustained a concussion?
Yes, I've derived an opinion about that.
And your opinion is?
That there's nothing in the video surveillance or the medical records that I reviewed that would suggest that she had a concussion.
Thank you.
Holder, Mr. Moore, you may cross-examine.
Good afternoon, Dr. Pena. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
My name is Wesley Holder. I represent the state of Tennessee. You said that you work for NAAG, is that correct?
Yes, I'm a consultant for NAAG.
And we heard a little bit about what that company is. Who's the director of NAAG?
It's Dr. Evan Mashes.
What did you say, sir?
I said it's Dr. Evan Mashes.
Okay. So you were retained by the defense in this case, is that correct?
Well, they retain the services of NAAG, and then they consulted me for a second opinion.
Okay. And you said you were paid for your work, is that correct?
Correct.
And what's your hourly rate and how many hours did you spend on this case?
So I don't remember the number of hours I spent on this case because NAAG pays me on a monthly basis for my time, so that way they can call me for second opinions. So I didn't keep track of that because that's well within what they expect of me to provide in terms of services.
So they pay
And
you
I'm sorry?
basically just a retainer each month they pay you, is that what you're saying?
Correct. So that way they can reach out to me and ask for my opinion on some of these cases.
And how much is that retainer, sir?
So it's the same that I charge for whenever I'm doing a private case, is $550 an hour.
And you reviewed all the medical records and all the videos and everything that we provided to the defense in this case, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you would agree with me that before January 9th, 2023, and this incident that occurred in the daycare, that Olivia was healthy and a normal developing 1-year-old child, correct?
Based on what I read on the records, yes.
And that you would agree that based on the evidence that you saw that when she was dropped off, she had no visible injuries, correct?
Again, based on what I read, that is correct.
And you would agree as a pediatrician, child abuse specifically, you'd agree that a 1-year-old child is entirely dependent upon their caregivers, correct?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Basically, the only thing that you disagree with the state on in this case is about what we see on the CT image, is that correct?
Based on the questions you've asked me, yes, that would be our only point of disagreement.
Let's talk a little bit about, you said under direct that there was 2 sets of injuries, and we didn't really get into the bruises as much, so let's talk about those. You would agree that based on what you saw in the video and what you saw in the photos that Miss Fuson caused those bruises to Olivia Hyde, correct?
It would appear to be the case, yes.
Okay. And as a child abuse pediatrician, you would agree that that was not an accident in what you saw in the video, correct?
By definition, it wouldn't be, no.
So I'm not asking you to draw a legal conclusion, but
I'm grateful for that.
and you said also under direct that you agreed with the radiologist's assessment that it was a lucency that was suspicious for fracture. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it is something that if I saw or if the emergency department called me and say, hey, what's your opinion on it? Then I would have shared opinions with the radiology read, yes.
And I guess you heard Dr. Lakin testify. She testified that the radiologist, when he made this determination, he had not seen the video. You would agree that had a radiologist seen that video, that would provide helpful information making that diagnosis, correct?
I wouldn't say that I would agree with that part, no.
Really? You wouldn't want more information as to how a child could have sustained an injury?
Well, that's a different question.
Well, what is the answer to that one, sir? Would
Well,
you,
yes, I would want more information, but your original question was that if the radiology saw that video, he would have an explanation for that injury, and that's what I'm disagreeing with.
I didn't say that he would have an explanation. I said it would have helped him make his diagnosis.
Okay, I still don't, I still would disagree with that.
I believe you testified too that based on what you saw in the video and the way Olivia's head was striking the cot, you didn't believe it was possible for her to have an injury on the top of her head. Is that what you said?
I did say that, yes.
Now, you've never seen this cot, have you?
Not that, I mean, beyond the video, yeah, no, I haven't seen it, but I've seen other videos other cots just like that one.
You have no idea what that cot is constructed of, do you?
No, it looked like it had a soft surface, a mesh, but no, not the specifics of it.
You're not here today to see it, correct?
That is correct.
I told you the edge of that cot had a very hard plastic edge that extended underneath the mesh. That changed your opinion as to whether or not what you saw in the video, the top of Olivia's head could have come in contact with the hard surface.
It wouldn't, no.
No. Fortunately, I don't believe I can show you the video either since you're not here. So let's talk about the concussion aspect. You said that you don't believe she suffered a concussion because of the way she acted after she woke up from her quote nap. Is that what you said?
Yeah, to me, what I saw her doing after the nap would not take me in the direction of a concussion.
What should she have been doing, I guess, if she had suffered one?
So the first part is I have never seen a concussion in an infant, and it's not because it wasn't there, it's just because they're really difficult to address or to assess. But what I have seen in children that are in toddlers that have sustained a head injury is that if they are symptomatic, one of the main things that we see is repeated vomiting, and sometimes we see it for multiple days. And then the other part would be that they seem to not be as steady on their feet as they were before the injury. So, with those two being probably the most objective findings that we can assign to that population, it would be hard to make the case in this particular incident with Olivia based on what I saw her doing immediately after.
You would agree, though, that for the 4.5 to 5 hour period after she woke up from her nap, there was nobody to report her behavior or symptoms. You would agree with that, correct?
Yes, my statement is based on what I saw in that surveillance video.
You also stated that the fact that there was no soft tissue swelling where the site of the fracture or suspicious fracture could have been, that was a sign that it wasn't a fracture. Is that what you said?
That's one of the things that I will look into. If I have a suspicious finding, then I'm going to try to figure out what other aspects of the physical exam help me figure out whether this is a traumatic injury or if it's a normal variant. So in this particular case, when I was going through that list, okay, let me see if there's anything in the soft tissue. There's nothing there. Then that would start decreasing my index of suspicion. Then what I was dealing with was a fracture. Again, every case is very specific and timelines need to be considered.
Would you agree with me that if a child's seen 10 days after the fact, and that child also had hair on top of their head, that it might have been hard to see any soft tissue swelling in the 10 days leading up to that examination?
I have seen a great deal of variability when it comes to soft tissue swelling. I have seen true fractures that the swelling has been there for 10 days, that we were able to confirm that. We have also seen in our cases that the parent, what leads them to seeking medical attention is that they found a bump on the child's scalp. And then when they go and seek medical attention and there's imaging of the head, then they find that there's a fracture there. So in terms of soft tissue, we see so much variability, but we have seen it up to 2 weeks out from the time of the injury that we have a great history to confirm it. So
But
that's why I say that it is possible.
it's possible that it could have healed in 10 days as well, correct?
It's possible, but that has not been what I see consistently. I do see soft tissue swelling remaining for double-digit days.
Also possible that not every skull fracture has soft tissue swelling, correct?
Well, it depends on the mechanics of what led to that fracture.
But not everyone has soft tissue swelling, correct?
If if the if the fracture was derived from impact to the skull, you often see the associated soft tissue swelling. But if what you're having is bending of the skull, particularly in the infant population, if there's bending of the skull from the impact on one side and the other side bends because of the dura, then you can actually find on the opposite side where that bone bent, you'll find a fracture, but you won't find swelling. So that's what I mean in terms of it depends. There are nuances to this.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that since you brought it up.
Sure.
Is it true that it's actually, I don't want to, it's more difficult to fracture an infant's skull because the term you used was bendability. Does it require more force to sustain a fracture to an infant than it would an adult who has a more rigid skull?
So it's interesting. If you look at parietal skull fractures, I have seen parietal skull fractures left and right fairly frequently, and is because the bone itself is quite thin. So even though there is some bendability, the thickness of it is so minimal that you in fact come across a great deal of fractures. And usually when we encounter them as just linear fractures of the parietal skull, we know that those can be sustained during short distance falls.
So you said you don't believe she sustained a concussion, excuse me. Do you have an opinion when you watched the video? Did you pay attention to the fact that after what we've been calling the final slam in here, when Olivia suffered the most violent of the force downs upon the cot, that she remained motionless for 35 minutes? Did you notice that when you watched the video?
Well, I watched that she remained in her cot, but she was being put down for a nap, so that made sense to me.
But as a pediatrician, is it normal for a 1-year-old to go from crying and pushing herself up to immediately stop all movement immediately? Is that normal?
Well, I have seen children be quite combative trying to fall asleep, both in the hospital setting, in clinics, in my home. And then at one point, they just finally decide to give up and go to sleep. So there's no way that I can objectively give an opinion on something through a surveillance video. That I don't think I could objectively opine on that.
You would
So that's
agree.
why I'm abstaining from making that jump, because the truth of the matter is impossible to decipher that through that surveillance video.
You're not saying she wasn't unconscious then, correct?
I don't see what could have led to an unconscious jump, if you will.
What if her head was slammed into a hard plastic cot? That could knock her unconscious, correct?
What I saw wouldn't align with what you're describing,
That's
sir.
not what I asked you. I asked you if her head was slammed into a hard plastic cot. That could render her unconscious, could it not?
Well, if it was slammed, but that's not the word that I would choose for what I saw in the video.
That's fine. That's the word that I used, though.
It's not the one I use for my assessments.
And again, you did not say that she wasn't unconscious, correct? You just said that you wouldn't say she was.
I'm saying that I don't see how that would happen from what I saw.
You also said under direct testimony that you said you didn't believe Olivia was maltreated. Is that what I heard?
Ask your question again, I'm sorry?
I believe I heard you say under your direct examination that you said that you didn't think Olivia was maltreated based on what you saw on video. Isn't that correct?
I said that I didn't feel that the finding on the CAT scan would align with a confirmation of maltreatment.
So you think the treatment that you saw on that video was entirely okay and normal treatment for a 1-year-old child?
That is not what I said. No, sir.
Well, then what are you saying? She was either maltreated or she wasn't, correct?
Well, we're talking about two separate things here. We're talking about bruising, we're talking about skull fractures. Most of the questions that you've asked
I'm
me,
asking you generally, was Olivia maltreated on the video that you watched?
the way in which she was handled, I would classify as maltreatment. Though what I'm seeing in the CAT scan does not rise to that level.
You're gonna have to explain that further for me, sir. You're saying you agree she was maltreated based upon what you saw, but since you don't agree that it's a skull fracture, that she wasn't maltreated, I don't understand that.
What I'm noticing from your questions is that you're bundling everything into maltreatment. And what I'm trying to clarify that is not that simple in a case like this. That what you're asking me to assess in terms of a fracture is a completely different question. So if we're talking about the way in which she was handled by her arms, based on definitions by general pediatrics and child abuse pediatrics, that would meet the definition of child maltreatment. But what I'm looking at the CAT scan, that does not meet the definition of child maltreatment because it is not a confirmed injury.
Based on what you
Trying
saw,
to be clear about my answers.
yes, sir, I appreciate that. Based upon what you saw on the video of her treatment while she was on the cot, I'm not talking about the CAT scan. Based upon what you saw in the video of her treatment while she was on the cot, would you classify that as maltreatment?
To us, that would be considered maltreatment, yes.
Thank you, sir. And also, from what I heard on direct, you said you don't have enough information to say that this was a fracture. You didn't say it wasn't a fracture. You just said, I don't have enough. Is that correct?
I don't have enough, but my index of suspicion is that this is not a fracture.
Correct, but you didn't say that it wasn't. On direct, you said, I don't have enough. Is that what you said?
That would be correct, yes.
If I could have one moment, sir.
Right.
Appreciate your patience, sir. I just have a couple more questions. So you work with NAAG. You're basically, you guys are on a team. Is that correct?
What does that mean?
I'm sorry. You said that your team collaborated on this case. Is that accurate to say, or did I mishear your direct testimony?
Which team? Because I belong to two teams, so I just want to make sure that
I
I'm
don't know if I'm
understanding.
pronouncing her name correctly, Dr. Hinkes and Dr. Matches.
Yeah, so they are part of NAAG, correct? That team.
Collaborate with them on this case. Is that that's what I'm asking you?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And have you ever collaborated with them before on cases?
Primarily with Dr. Matches.
You ever had a differing opinion from Dr. Matches?
Yes, we've had various different opinions multiple times.
Okay. Would you be here today if you had a differing opinion on this case?
Possibly, I don't know.
Thank you, sir. No
Sure.
problem.
Mr. Strines?
I have nothing further.
Thank you, doctor. You are now excused from further participation. Do you want to release him so that he can be released?
Yes,
All
Your
right. Thank you. You may exit our hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
You may call your next witness.
Call Madeline Hinkes. Judge, we're going to be seeing her on the
He
screen.
also on Zoom. Hinkes, you've been called as a witness. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Your Honor.
If you would, please raise your right hand, let me place you under oath. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
We're going to ask you to speak up as loudly as you can because you're coming across kind of softly in the courtroom here. So,
Oh. Okay, I will do that. Oh,
Good afternoon, Dr. Hinkes.
good afternoon.
If you would please state and spell your name for the record.
Dr. Madeline Hinkes, Madeline. The last name is Hinkes.
And how are you employed?
I am a forensic anthropologist, and for the past 7 years, I've worked with NAG Forensic.
Tell the jury, what is a forensic anthropologist?
Well, we are a subset of biological anthropology that studies humans as biological creatures. My specialty is human osteology, the skeletal system, looking at growth and development of the bones, their anatomy, what bones can tell us about people in terms of age, sex, ancestry, the changes the bones undergo with injury or disease, and whether these changes represent trauma or normal variation. Because we look at a lot of bones, we know a lot about the range of human variation.
And are you board certified in the field of forensic anthropology?
Yes, I am. Our credentialing board is the American Board of Forensic Anthropology. And I was certified in 1988, and then we get recertified every 3 years.
And what's involved in that certification process?
The original certification is a half-day written test and a half-day practical test. That's pretty strenuous. Half people get through it the first time, others have to retake part of the test the following year when it's offered.
If you would explain to the jury, as a practical matter, what does a forensic anthropologist do?
We are called upon by medical examiners, coroners, law enforcement to look at human remains. It might be because it's just skeletal remains. It might be because there's some kind of trauma and they want the anthropologist to help remove some of the soft tissue so the trauma can be looked at more closely. We sometimes are out with law enforcement excavating clandestine graves. And I also work with archaeologists and the local Native American tribes when they find bones at an archaeological site and they want to know if these are human bones or not.
How does the work of a forensic anthropologist relate to a case like this?
Oh, looking at aspects of bone development, what's normal, what's abnormal.
Over the years, have you worked with children's skeletal cases before?
I have. My dissertation was actually on child skeletal remains. And then over the years, and especially with NAG, I've been involved with a lot of infant and child cases.
How many cases have you reviewed over the course of your career?
Just children or everybody?
Children's cases, just
Cases, a few hundred.
And specifically, when you're tasked in a case like this, what is it that you're doing? What are you looking for?
I'm looking at x-rays, other imaging, to see if the child is developing normally for their age, and if there's any abnormality, any pathology or trauma to the body.
To do your work in this case, tell the jury, what did you review to come up with your opinions?
Originally, I reviewed the x-rays and the CT scans, and then later on, all the medical reports, videos, photographs, all the material that was presented to NAG from you, I guess.
And over the years, have you been qualified in courts of law as an expert in forensic anthropology?
Yes, in Arizona, California, and Idaho.
About how many times in your experience have you been declared an expert in that field?
I've testified a total of 16 times. And so each of those times I was qualified.
Your Honor, we would offer Dr. Hinkes as an expert in the field of forensic anthropology.
State, have any questions? All right, this witness will be qualified as an expert in the field of forensic anthropology.
Thank you.
In the course of your review, did you look at a CT scan that was done at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, the Monroe Carroll Children's Hospital?
Yes, I did.
And tell the jury exactly what you looked at.
Oh, I looked at images of the skull. They have what's called a scout image, so you see the entire skull, and then there's multiple images that you get that are the sections through the skull. So I went through all of those.
And was this a skeletal survey that you looked at?
Oh, for the X-ray, it was the entire skeleton. For the CT, it was just the skull.
Okay. And you also reviewed a skeletal survey as well?
Yes, I did.
And did you look at any medical records?
Oh, I looked at all the medical records that we had, basically from birth until she went to the hospital around the 19th of January, I believe, when all the testing took place.
When you looked at Olivia Hyde's CT scan, what stood out to you?
Oh, there was an unusual a groove or a line on her skull up near where the fontanelle was closing.
And you're pointing to the top of your skull, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, to the left of center.
And in your opinion, was that line that you were seeing on the CT scan, it's been referred to as a lucency, was that a fracture?
I did not think it was a fracture.
And explain to the jury why you don't believe what you were seeing was a fracture.
A lot of it has to do with just this complicated area of the skull where the fontanelle is. You've got 4 separate bones that are growing together. And as the bones grow, the fontanelle closes. And so you can get little islands of bone in that process that might be completely isolated. Sometimes they attach to the other bones as they're growing in. And so to me, it looked more like Wormian bone, the phrase that's been used before, or just part of the mechanics of the fontanelle closing.
And I think we all generally know what the fontanelle is and know that it's something that, closes with the skull or in the skull. Describe for the jury or define for the jury, what is the fontanelle?
It's a membranous area where the bones haven't grown enough to close together yet. There's a space between the infant bones that's allowing for the brain to grow inside, because you don't want the skull tightly fused, because then the brain can't grow. So as the brain is growing, these bones are growing, and eventually they'll fill in the membranous area of the various fontanelles in the skull.
And what is the so-called Wormian bone?
In general,
Yeah, what is a Wormian bone?
it's a bone that forms in a suture, and they're named, the original researcher that wrote about them in the 1600s was a Danish medical doctor named Worm. And so they're called Wormian bones because he was the first one to describe them.
And what is the interplay between the fontanelle closing and the Wormian bone?
Oh, they might or might not form. It's variable. But this seems to be one that was forming on the edge, the back left edge of the fontanelle.
And in your experience, have you seen Wormian bones before?
Oh, lots of times.
And in your professional career, have you testified before about the forming of a Wormian bone?
I have.
What's the difference between a fracture, a true fracture, and a Wormian bone?
A fracture is an actual break in the bone where the bone was whole and now it's not whole anymore. The Wormian bone is a separate little bone. It hasn't broken off of anything. It just forms on its own, and they're often seen in the sutures of infants.
When you did your analysis, did you see any signs of scalp swelling or hemorrhage in that area?
Oh, I did not.
And in that area, I guess, is the same area where there is supposedly this fissure or Wormian bone. Is that right?
Yes.
You saw no signs of swelling.
Not on the imaging, no.
And the imaging that we're talking about, that would be the CT scan. Is that correct?
And the X-ray, yes.
The X-ray. If a child had, about Olivia's age, had truly fractured her skull, what would you be expecting to see?
Oh, I would expect to see, again, soft tissue reaction, because that's part of the process of a fracture, is that lots of blood components flow in quickly to try to begin the healing process. I expect to see a soft tissue reaction. I'd probably expect it to be more than just about 1.5 centimeters long. This is a very short little line. And what I saw was smooth edges, rounded edges, looked much more like a Wormian bone than any of the fractures that I've seen.
What is the significance of the smooth edges, rounded edges, in your expert opinion?
That it hasn't been torn off of another bone. There hasn't been destruction to that area of bone. It's just normally, naturally formed.
Olivia was roughly 13 months old at the time that this CT scan was performed. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And would you expect that her skull was still developing at that point in her life?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be developing until she's, I don't know, well into her teens. But her fontanelle, for a child of 13 months, her fontanelle was more closed than I usually see in infants that young. So I noticed that abnormality or anomaly also.
With her skull still developing, how does that affect the calculus of a Wormian bone being present?
Oh, well, some Wormian bones persist until adulthood, especially large ones. Others, this one, because of the process of the fontanelle closing, could eventually just be absorbed into the bone around it. The bone will grow around it.
And how long does it take the top of the skull for a child to complete its fusion process, roughly?
Well, in the child, the sutures, the areas between the bone are membranous. And over time, the skull bones form little teeth along the edges that will interdigitate and hold the skull firmly together. And that's happening through childhood, through adolescence, through early adulthood, when it's finally completely interlocked.
In advance of your testimony, did you have the opportunity to review the daycare video from the Tylertown Learning Center
Yes, I did.
for the date of January the 9th of 2023?
Yes.
And do you remember which clips that you reviewed?
Oh, the one where she's at the table and then the ones where she's being put down onto the cot.
Let's talk about the cot first. What were the impressions of what you were seeing in the video of the time that she was on the cot?
Oh, that you had a 13-month-old who didn't want to take a nap.
In terms of any head impact by Olivia Hyde to any part of the cot, what did you see?
I didn't see clear evidence of a head impact.
In your view of the CT scan, did it, in your view, in your expert opinion, did it show evidence of a fracture?
No, no conclusive evidence of a fracture.
And in terms of the skeletal survey and the skeletal evidence in this case, did it show any signs of trauma?
No, it was perfect. It was age appropriate. Everything was growing just exactly as it should be growing.
Thank you, Dr. Hinkes. But before I leave you, I'm going to show you what we're going to have marked. I think we're up to Exhibit 10. Did you provide me with a copy of your curriculum vitae, your CV?
I did.
We're going to have that marked as an exhibit to your testimony.
Okay.
Those are my questions.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, doctor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Fine.
Is it Hinkes? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, yes.
Are you employed by NAG as well?
Yes, I am.
Are you on a retainer also, or are you paid a salary? How does that work?
I have a salary.
How much are you paid, ma'am?
Well, I'm part-time, and so my salary is about $50,000 for the year.
How many hours did you spend on this case in particular?
Between reviewing all the records, researching skull development, probably close to 24 hours
Okay.
over a period of time.
And you're a forensic anthropologist, is that correct?
Yes.
You don't treat live patients, correct?
No, thank you.
You deal with skeletal remains, is that correct?
Skeletal, decomposed, anything that's not alive.
And thankfully, we didn't have any skeletal remains for you in this case. That's correct, right?
Yes, I am very happy about that.
So let's talk a little bit about the Wormian bones. Focus on that since that's where your expertise lies. Is this a common location for a Wormian bone to appear that we saw that you're claiming is on Olivia's skull? Is that a common location?
No, it's less common than other areas of the skull.
How rare or how uncommon is it? Do you have you seen any studies or anything that would let you know?
Maybe 5% of the population.
And you said you did review the video, is that right?
Yes, I did.
But you haven't seen the cot either, have you? In person?
No, just the pictures of it.
Right. So you don't know what the cot is made of or how it's constructed, do you?
Oh, there was a description in one of the investigative reports of how it was made, and I read that.
when you reviewed the video, did you review the video that was zoomed in and close up, or did you just review the normal full day video that was more zoomed out for the entire room?
Now, I looked at all the ones that we were sent.
And your opinion as a forensic anthropologist, you're saying that a 13-month-old child having her head slammed into a hard piece of plastic cannot cause a fracture. Is that your opinion?
I did not see a child being slammed.
You didn't see a child being slammed? Okay. You're not a medical doctor, are you?
No, I am not. PhD.
If I could have one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
On direct, did you say that it's abnormal for a fontanelle to close at 13 months? Is that what you said?
Oh, it's, in my experience, a little early for it to be that closed. There's still a little patency, but it's more closed than I usually see at that age.
Okay. And you also said on direct that the skull is comprised of 4 bones. Is that what you said?
No, just the area around the anterior fontanelle has 4 bones.
And you specialize in bones, for lack of a better term. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Redirect, Mr. Strange.
Redirect.
Thank you, ma'am. You are released.
Good afternoon, Dr. Matches.
Hello, sir.
If you would state your name for the court, please, and spell your last name, first and last names.
My name is Evan Matches, Evanmatses.
And you are appearing via Zoom this afternoon, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And had you planned to be with us in person here in open court today?
Yes, sir.
And what's prevented you from appearing in person?
Traveling over the last few weeks of the government shutdown has gotten unbearably difficult.
I think you made a real effort to try to be here in person, is that right?
3 tickets.
Tell the jury, what is your profession?
I'm a medical doctor, trained as a specialist in anatomic, diagnostic, and molecular pathology, and trained as a subspecialist in forensic pathology.
And how long have you been a physician?
Physician since 2004.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm employed at NAG Forensic as Chief Forensic Pathologist and Medical Director.
Tell the jury a little bit about what NAG Forensic is and what it does.
NAG is a private medical practice that is predominantly government funded through our work with law enforcement, the prosecution, and the Department of Defense. We operate as a forensic pathology consultation service for all of the agencies I've mentioned, and about 9% of our funding comes from reviewing cases at the request of the defense.
Now, you said 9%?
About 9%.
And NAAG is an acronym for something, is that right?
Yes, sir. National Autopsy Assay Group.
And you've been affiliated with that company for how long?
10 years.
And what is your role at NAAG?
I'm one of the owners, and I oversee the daily administrative operations. I'm also a practicing physician on the forensic autopsy service and the pediatric services, which I oversee.
When were you first licensed to practice medicine?
I was licensed to practice medicine in medical school, which the first year I believe was 2002.
Tell the jury a little bit about your academic background and training.
After high school, I did a degree in human anatomy and cell biology, then went to medical school and graduated, trained as a pathologist, trained as a forensic pathologist. During the 5th year of my training as a pathologist, I did a pediatric forensic pathology research fellowship in Miami-Dade County, where I specifically looked at 2 areas of interest in child abuse. Since then, I've had academic roles. I'm currently an associate professor at the California University of Science and Medicine. I've written books, published papers, and I regularly teach both at the medical school and around the globe.
Tell the jury what a forensic pathologist does.
The jury has a notion from TV that a forensic pathologist is a dead people doctor, and that's partially true. Most forensic pathologists do autopsies for a living. I do autopsies, but that's not really what a forensic pathologist is. A forensic pathologist is a doctor who uses their knowledge of human injury and disease to help solve legal problems, and when necessary, present it to the court in an understandable way.
Have you been board certified in any particular subspecialty?
Yes, sir.
And what is that specialty?
I'm board certified in diagnostic and molecular pathology by the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, in anatomic pathology by the American Board of Pathology, and in forensic pathology from the American Board of Pathology.
And what has been your primary area of practice during the course of your career?
Pediatric forensic medicine and pathology, focusing specifically on child abuse and the reasons why some infants die unexpectedly.
Have you testified as an expert in the field of child forensic pathology?
Yes, I've testified several hundred times in local courts, federal courts, for the military, and for governments overseas.
And have you been declared an expert in that field?
Yes, in multiple different related areas of forensic medicine and pediatric forensic medicine.
Your Honor, I would offer Dr. Matches as an expert in the field of forensic pediatric medicine.
Do you have any questions? All right, he'll be so qualified as an expert.
Dr. Matches, over the course of your career, have you developed an expertise in injury analysis and interpretation?
Yes, sir.
Give the jury some estimate of the number of cases that you've worked on in your professional career.
At this point, over 15 years of practice, thousands of cases.
Dr. Matches, how would you describe forensic pathology in its simplest terms?
It's helping people understand complex medical ideas in a legal way.
And you told us that you specialize in pediatric cases, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And tell us a little bit more about the specialized training that you received in those kinds of cases.
Throughout my training, I was able to focus my interest in various pediatrics ways. For example, in 2007, I was awarded the Harvard Medical School Visiting Scholar in Pediatric Pathology, which allowed me to study pediatric pathology-related issues on site at Harvard. And I've been able to tailor my publications, my scholarly interest, and my teaching mostly around child abuse.
Were you asked to review this case involving Sarah Jo Fuson?
Yes, sir.
And I assume that you reviewed certain materials in anticipation of your testimony here today. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury what those materials were that you reviewed prior to your testimony.
I reviewed Olivia's medical records, photographs taken by law enforcement of the daycare of the parents' home. I reviewed all of the original medical imaging data and multiple videos surveillance videos from the daycare.
When you started your review, what were the main issues you were asked to evaluate?
I was asked to come to the truth in this matter and advise you what I thought.
Why don't we start at the beginning? Based on your evaluation of all the discovery and materials that you received, what do we objectively know happened that day at the daycare?
We objectively know that Olivia was handled in a rough fashion that led to bruising on her arms.
You've seen the surveillance video from the toddler room, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you see any, in your estimation and your expertise, any violent behavior on that video?
No, I did not.
What did you see in terms of the interaction of Ms. Fuson and her handling of Olivia Hyde?
I saw her roughly put Olivia to bed. I did not see violence, and I did not see slamming.
Did you see in the materials that you reviewed some bruising on Olivia's arms?
Yes, sir.
And what was your conclusion as to the bruising?
The bruising, its location, its appearance, and their surveillance video together allow me to believe that Miss Fuson caused the bruising and how she inappropriately handled Olivia.
In the universe of materials, you also saw a CT scan of Olivia Hyde that was conducted at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, the Monroe Carroll Children's Hospital, on January the 19th, 2023. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what were your impressions and evaluations from seeing that CT scan?
That she did not have a fracture, that she had a Wormian bone, where the two frontal bones come together and fuse with the sagittal suture, where the soft spot, the anterior fontanelle, closes.
And how did you arrive at that conclusion?
1, training and experience. 2, in addition to reviewing the materials you gave me, I dissected Olivia's skull digitally, performing a virtual autopsy, if you will, to use more detail and legally appropriate methods to analyze the skull and the alleged fracture.
And as a result of that digital dissection, what did you find?
That the overwhelming evidence is that this is not a fracture, that this is a Wormian bone, albeit at a location that is much less common than the other locations in the skull.
What is a Wormian bone?
It's a bone that develops in or along a suture, with the suture being the point of contact between each of the 26 bones in the skull.
Now, you had the benefit of hearing the expert testimony this morning of the state's expert, Dr. Lakin, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And her conclusion is that there was a fracture.
That is my understanding.
And what is your opinion, your expert medical opinion, as to whether there was a fracture in this case?
I do not believe there was a fracture. I believe it's a Wormian bone at a location called the bregma, B-R-E-G-M-A.
And where is the bregma?
The bregma is at the top front of your head, and it is the point of fusion where the frontal bones come together at the sagittal suture, which runs from front to back, the top middle of your head, and the location of your soft spot, your anterior fontanelle.
What convinces you to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the line that was identified by the state's expert this morning is not a fracture?
Because in reality, I'll start over. Multiple factors, including the reality that it is more than a simple line. And I was able to demonstrate that using Olivia's scan data to more properly analyze the finding.
And your finding was that it was not a fracture.
Correct. And I have an exhibit to help demonstrate my opinion.
And your exhibits, you're talking about one of the photographs, correct?
Correct. In my report, it's labeled Exhibit 7.
Judge, I think we're up to 11 now.
I think that's correct.
Your Honor, may I refer to the exhibit on my screen simultaneously?
I believe that would be agreeable as long as that's the same exhibit that's going to be demonstrated here.
Yes.
Yes, sir, identical.
And this is going to be trial exhibit number 11, is that correct?
Correct.
And just so it's clear, Dr. Matches, your exhibit is exhibit number 7 to your expert report, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And tell us again for the record, what is it that we're going to be looking at?
What we're looking at is part of the virtual autopsy I performed on Olivia's head. And in doing so, what I used was a industry standard technique known as a maximum intensity projection that uses Olivia's data not to make a pretty three-dimensional model, but instead to look at the finer details that are present. I took the top of her skull cap off, looked at the inside, and the black and white image that we will see is the inside of her skull cap removed from the rest of her skull.
Your Honor, I'd like to offer, it's a little awkward with him on the screen, but offer trial exhibit 11 as evidence, and we're going to try to play it.
All right.
You have access to it, is that right, Dr. Matches?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to show it?
Am I able to show it?
If you're able to screen share it with us, yes.
Yes, sir.
That would be much better.
But I see nothing in the videos that would have knocked her unconscious or caused a skull fracture, and I believe that the medical imaging data demonstrates a sutural bone and not a fracture.
Basically, you're suggesting that the state's expert may have misinterpreted the radiological evidence in this case. Does that happen in your profession?
Yes, the more uncommon that a finding gets, the increased likelihood that we disagree on it. This sutural bone, as I describe it, is in one of the less common locations, or much less common locations, which might mean that some people could misinterpret it.
And to sort of sum this up, if you could state your opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty about what you have concluded in this case.
Olivia has bruises on her arms from inappropriate handling by Miss Fuson, but she has no findings on her head related to being slammed or struck with, by, or against an object or surface. And importantly, she does not have a skull fracture.
How confident are you in your opinion?
As confident as I can be without an autopsy.
Is that a pretty high degree of confidence?
I'm very confident that this is not a fracture.
Dr. Matches, you have shared with me a copy of your curriculum vitae, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'm going to ask to move that into evidence and have it marked as, I think we may be up to 13.
The next in order.
Thank you, Dr. Matches.
You're welcome.
Mr. Holder, you have cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Dr. Matches. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Wesley Holder.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. So correct me if I'm wrong, you're a forensic pathologist, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You don't treat patients, is that correct?
Correct. I do not treat any patient.
You review records, medical records, evidence, images after the fact, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were retained by the defense in this case, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're compensated for your time and paid for your testimony today, is that correct?
Yes, I'm salaried, but the defense will have paid the agency for my time.
How much did the defense pay your agency for this testimony today?
I don't know, but all agencies, whether it's prosecution or defense, pay the same rate.
Your testimony is that you're the owner of the company, but you don't know how much they paid you?
I'm one of the owners, and I don't deal with billing, so it's something that's outside my day-to-day purview.
Okay. You would agree that, I don't know if you heard my questioning of Dr. Pena, but you would agree that prior to this incident, Olivia was, according to all the evidence that you've been provided, Olivia was healthy, normal, developing one-year-old child, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that whatever occurred to her, whatever injury she sustained that day occurred in the daycare, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they would have been caused by Miss Sarah Fuson, correct?
Yes, sir.
I believe in your report, I don't have it here in front of me, but I believe it was line 112, and you testified on direct that you concluded that Miss Fuson caused the bruising to Olivia's arms, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I believe in your report you said that that was not a severe injury, is that accurate?
Yes, sir. It represents abusive handling, but it's not a severe injury.
How would you classify that bruising if it's hard enough to leave an imprint of clothing on a child? That would be someone squeezing extremely hard, would it not?
Potentially, yes. It's difficult to know how much force was used to cause any bruise in any person because everyone bruises so differently.
You would agree that's pretty severe bruising, though, correct?
It's severe enough for me to label it abusive handling.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So ultimately, like with Dr. Pena, your disagreement with Dr. Lakin in this case basically comes down to the thin linear line that we've all been talking about today. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And you said basically at the end of your testimony there, you're saying basically that correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying there's zero chance that you're the one who's interpreting that image incorrectly and Dr. Lakin happens to be correct? You're saying there's no possibility of that?
That's not my testimony. I said that I'm convinced that this is as far as I can be without an autopsy.
And like Dr. Pena and Dr. Hinkes, you haven't been here to Middle Tennessee to inspect the cot, is that correct?
To inspect the cot, I have not inspected the cot, no.
So would you agree with me that a person who actually viewed the video and inspected the object that the child hit their head on would have a more accurate analysis? Would you agree with me? If you don't even know what Olivia hit her head on, how can you give us a more accurate analysis than Dr. Lakin?
And that was two questions, and I'll answer the second one first, which is from the video, it appears she struck her head on the mesh portion of the cot. And to answer your first question, a person with access to more or better information will usually be in a better position to offer opinions.
If I told you that that cot has a hard plastic edge that's visible on top, but it also has a hard plastic edge that protrudes under the mesh further down to where Olivia's head struck, what would you say to that?
I would first say that that's not what's represented in the law enforcement photos of the cot, but that in the theoretical scenario where that was true, I still don't believe she was handled roughly enough on that cot to break her skull.
Okay. And you saw the video, is that correct?
Yes, sir, repeatedly.
You saw the repeated rough handling, as you termed it, of Olivia, and you're saying that that was not hard enough to cause a skull fracture, in your opinion?
Correct. As you pointed out toward the beginning of my testimony, she's an otherwise normal, healthy girl, and I have no reason to suspect her bones would break with less force than any other normal, healthy girl. And what I saw there, I wouldn't anticipate would break her skull.
But just a minute ago, you said it appeared as though her head hit the mesh. If her head had hit the hard plastic on that last slam, would you not agree that that could be hard enough to cause a skull fracture?
Again, you use the word slam, but that's not how I observe the video.
Well, that'll be up to the jury to determine in what manner she was treated, but the question still remains, would you not agree with whatever term you want to use? If her head hit the hard plastic edge, are you still saying that that's not enough force to cause a skull fracture?
An infant who is slammed against a broad and flat object or surface could have a skull fracture.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And I believe you used the term that you said that that was not violent behavior. You said it was just, I don't remember, was it mistreatment that you said?
I said she was roughly handled on the cot.
You're saying that that was not violent.
To me, that was not violent, as I saw on the full frame video and the zoomed in and slowed down videos.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your process. I believe you called it a virtual autopsy. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that an official medical term, or is that a term that your company, NAAG, uses?
No, it's a broadly used term that also goes by the name vertopsy, but I believe that was trademarked, so we're not supposed to use it.
Yes, sir. I won't ask you to violate that then. Is it more predominantly performed on living patients or dead patients?
Well, it depends on the context. Vertopsy, virtual autopsy, made its claim to fame with deceased people, but the techniques work just the same on the living as they do the deceased.
You didn't actually examine Olivia. You just used the imaging and data that was provided to you and then put it into your whatever software computer system you use. Is that accurate?
Correct. Olivia's data was used in this commercially available software that radiologists and forensic pathologists use called OSIRIX, OSIRIX, and that's what allows both our analysis and our virtual dissections.
So those images we're talking about that you showed us earlier, were those what you determined, what you just called virtual dissections? Those are what you're speaking about?
Yes, where, for example, a portion of her skull could be removed so we could better see the detail.
And you created those images, correct? Or your company created those?
I personally prepared them by utilizing the software and the equipment.
And we already spoke about this a little bit, but you agreed that Ms. Fuson handled Olivia in a way that inflicted non-accidental trauma in the form of the bruises, correct?
Yes, sir. Abusive handling.
Thank you. It was not an accident.
It did not appear to be, no, sir.
She wasn't sleepwalking or anything like that when she did it.
That would be news to me.
Yes, sir. Let's talk a little bit more about the Wormian bones. I believe you said it was not a common location to see a Wormian bone. Where are they more commonly seen?
Most commonly toward the back of the head in what's called the lambdoid suture, LAMBDOID.
And this one that you're claiming is a Wormian bone, please tell us again where it's located.
toward the front of the head in the region of the soft spot, the anterior fontanelle.
And so if Olivia was forcefully pushed down onto the cot and the top of her head struck a hard plastic edge, said if Olivia was forcefully pushed down, slammed, whatever term you want to use, onto a cot and hit her head on a hard plastic edge, that would generally be in the area where we would see it, is it not?
I don't know about generally, but it's possible.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just want to talk a little bit about your prior work history. So in 2019, were you doing some work in Texas? Is that correct?
I was not, the company had a contract in Texas.
And was a lawsuit filed against you by an employee that accused you of practicing in Texas without a license?
A lawsuit was filed against the company and myself by a county employee who was fired for taking photographs of dead children after the autopsy and giving them to the parents of those dead children. And then she sued us for inducing the county to have her fired. But that was thrown out and we were awarded costs.
Okay, but you were accused of practicing without a license and of illegally transporting fetal tissue to California, is that correct?
People made all sorts of allegations, yes, all of which were disproven.
Okay. And then I detect a little bit of an accent. Are you from Canada, perhaps?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So did you used to work at the in Alberta as a forensic pathologist there, is that correct?
Yes, I was one of them.
And in 2020, did the CBC, did they produce a two-part news program that basically accused you of being wrong, misleading, negligent, and substandard, and that it was a miscarriage of justice that had occurred as a result of your work?
They produced a news report, which they've been sued over, that was based on some government allegations. But as you'll know from having researched me, the Minister of Justice apologized to me personally, and they settled with me over those false allegations.
Okay. But those allegations were levied against you, is that correct?
People love making false allegations. We're a culture that chases outrage these days.
And in that role as forensic pathologist there, was your part of your duty to testify in court like you're doing today, is that correct?
Yes, every forensic pathologist testifies in court.
And back then, you more often than not testified for the prosecution, is that correct?
Back then and today, yes.
If I could have one moment here.
You may. You have redirect?
Just very briefly. Dr. Matches, I think you told us that you expected to be here in person today, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And your review of the cot was limited to